welcome to Living Off Script. I am super excited to have with us today Adam James, aka also known as the character of Gary Underpants, who I met a few months ago at a Tantra festival in California, in Northern California. And actually, was that a Tantra festival? I'm actually not sure if that was actually a Tantra festival or some other type of festival.
It was an incredible experience. It was definitely something happening in the woods.
Something happening in the Redwoods. It was in the Redwoods. And just as a reminder, Living Off Script is the podcast where we are interviewing people who are living authentically, finding themselves in a way where most people maybe are living more on, I don't know, societal expectation of what the path should look like. But here we have Adam James. He's going to inspire us with his story and tell us how he got to be where he is. And yeah, I'm so excited to have you. Thank you for joining us today. I know we were just talking a little bit about you're originally from Toronto.
Yes, I am Canadian, and I found my way to the United States because I'm a jazz singer. And I always wanted to perform in New York and tour around and see America. That's where jazz comes from. That's what they say is America's greatest art form, or only original art form is jazz music. So
Wow, I didn't know that.
yeah, that's kind of a big thing about America is the creation of jazz, which comes out of blues, which comes out of traditional folk music, which it's just this lineage of amazing things happening in America, the great melting pot.
Wow, well, you've taught me something new already. I'm excited to learn more. All right, so you grew up in Toronto, and what was your childhood like? How did you grow up in Toronto?
I started when I was 4 years old playing violin.
Oh.
And so I was performing at a very young age on violin, and I studied with the Suzuki method. And
Mhm.
so did my sister. So my mom would drive us to these lessons out of town. And the great thing about Suzuki method to any parents listening out there right now is that your child learns by ear. First of all, they learn to play the violin by ear, which is really important not to read music when you're young. And the second thing is you're performing with a group all the time on stage. So you never really feel any kind of social anxiety or any kind of stage fright. So I grew up with this great ear training of the violin, plus performing a lot, plus my father's a folk musician and my mom's a dancer. So I grew
Oh,
up in this
wow.
incredible, arts was really valued where I grew up. And I got into playing drums when I was in high school, and then I was in the rock bands and jazz bands. And I realized that I could go to university for music instead of having to
Mhm.
do something boring. And
Yes.
I was performing a lot. And so I went to McGill University in Montreal, where I studied actually jazz drumming.
Mm.
And then I started a jazz trio there. We made a bunch of records. We toured around, played the jazz festivals, played lots of clubs and private events. And then I was like, my big break happened when I was 28 years old.
28?
Yeah, when I was 28, I had a big break in my life, which, I hope everyone has big breaks in their lives.
Hmm.
Mine was that Frank Sinatra died.
Okay.
Yeah, it was great and it was terrible. So Frank Sinatra is one of my major influences as a singer. I loved his style. I loved his, the way he was so creative and the way he phrased and the songs he chose. And it was my grandfather's music.
Yeah.
So I was into it because I was into jazz. And so a lot of people considered Louis Armstrong and Frank Sinatra and Ella Fitzgerald to be like the greatest jazz singers.
Hmm.
And so Frank died in 1998, and his family wanted to pay tribute to him and honor his life. So in 1999, they produced a musical about his life, and they hired me to play the role of Frank.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, wow. So I was
That
28 years
is
old.
huge. Wow.
Yeah, yeah, I was huge. So I was 28 years old, and there I had uh, kind of all these expectations put on me, but also, people sort of started to see me as like a Sinatra. So, that was really, really great in a sense. It really gave me a lot of confidence.
Hmm.
And it also really fed my ego.
Yeah, I can imagine that. Yeah.
So I grew a lot as a musician and as an artist and as a performer. And then I also struggled with being compared to him all the time, but also people just sort of adoring me because I was Frank Sinatra.
Right. And where were you at this time? Were you in New York City?
That was in Montreal.
Oh, that was in Montreal. Okay.
Yeah, where I went to school. I went to school at McGill University, which was in Montreal. And then, yeah, I performed that show for a year in Montreal.
Okay.
And then I opened for Ray Charles at the Montreal Jazz Festival and shared the stages with Liza Minnelli. And then I opened for Tony Bennett. So I had a lot of breaks that happened, when I was in my
Yeah.
early
Oh my
30s.
gosh. Yes. I mean, these are like, big names.
Yeah, legends of the game.
Yes.
And so then I did in 2001, 10 days before September 11th, I moved to New York City.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
to pursue my dream of performing and studying jazz singing. I studied with an amazing singer, Mark Murphy.
Hmm.
And I always had wanted to live in New York City because I love Broadway and I love the jazz clubs and I love the cabaret clubs.
Hmm.
So I really went to New York to, practice my craft and, learn from the legends, basically.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so my timing was moved there 10 days before September 11th and the city shuts down and I'm like, oh, my dreams are over. Like life's over. I don't know what's going to happen. And so after Christmas that year, I went to Brazil and recorded a bunch of music for a month in Brazil.
And what happens from there?
I lived in New York and I started to be in touring shows of symphony shows. And
Hmm.
I don't know if anyone out there knows what it's like to be on tour, but you're on tour and it becomes your life. You're sort of living on the road. And so for a number of years, half of my time I was on the road, traveling, performing in these shows, these musical reviews or musicals or big band shows and symphonies. I was also singing with symphonies. I sang with a bunch of great symphonies. And I was thinking, why am I keeping an apartment? I mean, I'm on the
Hmm.
road half the year. So I decided, you know what? I'm going to move to California, see what that's like, see what it's like in LA. My sister lives in LA. I'm going to see what LA is like. So I moved to LA and I moved straight into the Hollywood Hills and I got my green card thanks to being Frank Sinatra.
Hmm.
And I lived in the Hollywood Hills, which was just magical. I had only lived in Hollywood for about a month
Uh-huh.
when my friend is like, hey, we're going to a party at the Playboy Mansion.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, is this my life? Like, is this really happening? Is this what it's going to be like forever? And
Yeah.
so I fell in love with celebrity, the life of celebrity culture, and definitely went to the Mecca of celebrity in LA.
Wow. Okay. So this has been your life since, you referenced, when you're 28, you were doing this show in Montreal, and then you moved to New York City, and then you moved to LA, and you've been a musician all your life, right? And this is what you've chosen to do, consciously and intentionally. This is a lifestyle that you choose for yourself, right?
Yeah, I mean, this not only the sort of the thing that I was born into in terms of studying since I was very young, yet it was also the thing I studied all the way through school, focused on. I studied with some of the best teachers. I studied with the best of the best teachers, that's for sure. And so I was really dedicated to the craft of performing music and learning how to express myself musically. And when you become a professional musician, everyone in the world that's not a professional musician sees celebrities, sees famous musicians, sees all these stars. And then if you're a professional musician, you're like, all you see is gigs, work, you know, marketing yourself, trying to get the next gig,
Yep.
who you're playing with, coordinating your tour, like writing songs. It's all like it's a craft like anything else. Like anyone else who's like a an electrician, like they have to like get their gigs, they have to like keep up on their craft,
On their business, on the business side of it, right?
business side, yeah. So even if you're not like a super famous human, you're still performing as an artist and going through the journey of an artist like any other artist, famous or not.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There was one thing that you shared with me in the Redwoods that stood out for me, and that was that at some point you decided that you didn't want to make money a really important thing. And I want to follow up on that because I was like, when you shared that with me, I was like, oh my gosh, that's such a beautiful intention and such a different intention that what most people are like, I want to go make a lot of money, right? So tell us a little bit about that.
Success is less. This is what I've learned. In 2009, my friends in LA started inviting me to Burning Man. And I was like, what are you talking? What is Burning Man? What is this thing? What do you mean? And they were telling me about it. I was like, oh, that sounds crazy. That sounds scary. I don't know if I want to go in the desert and like get all dehydrated and get all sunburned. Like I'm like the such fair skin. It's like, and so it took them a couple years to get through to me that this was going to be like really amazing and really life changing. So in 2011, I went to my first Burning Man.
Hmm.
And right from my very first day there, I was like, okay, I totally get this. This is unbelievable. My first revelation was I didn't really know what art was until I got to Burning Man.
Hmm.
And I'm an artist. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
You know,
So that's a lot. Yes.
like live the life in the arts. Like I went to school for it, like, and so I get to Burning Man and I've just had my mind blown. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, I get it. And I'm looking around at all these people that are burners, and they're all like, I'm like dehydrated, yep, you know, tired, and they're just like looking great, all in shape, happy. I'm like, who are these people? And how do I get to be like them? Because they're having the most fun that I've ever seen happen.
Right. Right. Uh-huh.
So I come back from Burning Man that year and I'm like, I want to get into good shape so I can survive out there. So my friend invited me to a class. And I went to this class, took the class, and right at the end of the class, I said to her, I'm like, what is this? I'm doing this all the time. And she's like, it's
Hmm.
Kundalini yoga.
Hmm.
And so Kundalini yoga became my life.
Hmm.
And
That's right. We talked about this. Yes.
yeah, so Kundalini yoga, which is a branch of yoga,
Hmm.
is the yoga of intuition. So it really develops your breathing and your mind body connection so that you can really like keep using your pineal gland, which is really helps you with your intuition,
Hmm.
which is really great skill, especially if you're a guy, because women are born so much more aware than men naturally. And so I was sort of training my intuition, which is definitely on the female side of our lives. And I got to a point in where I was doing 2 classes a day of
Wow.
Kundalini. So that was like a quite like morning and an afternoon class. It was like a big part of my life. And I was walking to those classes from my house in Hollywood. And it was with the best teachers. And at a certain point, I just decided, I want to keep trusting this journey more.
Hmm.
And I want to kind of see what this is like when my life isn't about just making money as an artist. I want to just trust that money will come. And I'm not going to focus on making money. I'm just going to focus on being of service. I'm going to focus on giving what's needed, whoever wants it, like whatever they need, I'm going to help them with it. I'm going to give my gifts and I'm going to give them away, whether people are going to give me money for it or not.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was my mindset shift that
I want to
happened.
cry right now. Like so touched by that. I swear. I'm just like, that's beautiful. It's amazing.
And honestly, I didn't know how long it would last. I didn't know what would come of it. I didn't know. what the benefits would be, what the challenges would be until I was in it. And so I just did it. And I definitely grew exponentially in terms of learning how to trust. I learned what trust was.
Yeah.
And I learned so much about service and what being of service is.
Mm.
And also, like, it just changed my priorities and it just had a ripple effect over my whole life. And this was at a time where I was in my early 40s and most of my friends were going through midlife crisis at this time. And I was too, obviously, because I'd just chosen a different path to go through it, where instead of trying to, I don't know, get a Ferrari,
Yeah.
I was like, I want to give everything away and see what that
Yeah.
feels like.
Yes. Yes.
You know, like an opposite. It's still extreme. It's still extremist sort of behavior, but
Yeah.
I believe that like when we have this midlife crisis, it's like everyone has it, by the way. It's a huge new shedding of the skin that we go through. Whatever we have around us at that time greatly influences the direction we're going to go. So luckily I was in this really spiritual moment in my life. And so it greatly shifted my life.
That's amazing. And I do agree with you. Everybody goes through it. I read recently that it's less of a crisis. It's really not a crisis. It's more of an unfolding, where we're actually just kind of like, playing Mario Brothers and you're going to level two or level three, it's like that it's the next level, and you're right. It depends on where you are in your life in the moment. That's going to have a huge influence on how, like, where you go with that. It could be all kinds of things. So that was amazing that you were in that spiritual path, and that for you it was about what you said, success is less.
Well, that's what I learned. That's what I now share with people. Like
Yeah.
after that was a while ago. So that was like almost 15 years ago. That opened so many other things. Like in 2017, then I became a nomad. So I finally got to the point where I could give up my house
Uh-huh.
and not have a permanent home and still be in the world and still be in communities because I was able to travel a lot more and be with people where they are.
Right.
Because, you know, and the more I looked into it, like sage, troubadour kind of lifestyle, this is being a nomad is very traditional. It's very traditional. Like humans were nomads for millions, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of years before we had agriculture and settled down. We would follow the food.
Right.
And so that's my theory. We still are biologically nomads. And
Right.
it's very difficult for us to be in homes and in like jobs and doing things over and over, like automated, because our biology is follow the food, follow the sun. This is what I discovered on my own by doing it.
Yeah. And
And
no, it makes a lot of sense. And that's probably why a lot of people have, me included, a really hard time with what feels what some people would call monotony, or being in the same place doing the same thing, like, and maybe your ancestry may have something to do with it, with that biological calling. I probably was a nomad. I mean, I probably have those instincts, but anyway, it makes perfect sense. It
yeah,
makes
I
a
think
lot of sense.
I discovered it. And because if we look at not only our habits, but where we live in the world. So anywhere that's like north of Atlanta on the line there, like
Mhm.
sort of maybe LA's on the line too. Anywhere north of there doesn't get enough sun for you to actually create enough vitamin D.
Right.
But or we'll just drink some more alcohol or we'll have some more sugar or we'll just take some vitamins and
Right.
you know it doesn't work. And psychologists will tell you all the studies. You can look at all the studies, look it up. You can't live above that and still be healthy. So why do we have record amounts of multiple sclerosis and cancer in Canada,
Hmm.
it's pretty clear we don't have enough sun.
Not enough sun. Wow. So interesting. I love that you brought that up. But yeah, it makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense. So I want to learn more about your nomad lifestyle. So that is since 2017, right? And so what does that look like for you currently?
Currently, where am I now? I travel, I'm usually like 1 or 2 months or 1 or 2 weeks somewhere, and then I'm somewhere else. People invite me to be in their space, in their world with them, with my friends, with family. Right now I'm at my parents' home actually because my dad just turned 80. So it gave me a chance to be here for a few weeks with him
Yeah.
and
Oh, that's
and
awesome.
celebrate him. Yeah, you know. I mean another thing that you should know about me is I don't have children. So
Hmm.
this also greatly, I guess, it gives me more freedom, you know?
It does. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It definitely does. Being a mother, I crave, I am living vicariously through you, like listening to you right now. And, my kids are getting a little bit older. I thought about traveling with them when they were little, and they were so opposed to it. Kids, I mean, they wanted their structure. They wanted to go to school. They wanted to be with their friends. And at some point I accepted that. And I was like, I chose to be a mom, and I want them to have the stability that they crave. I do think it's kind of a little bit of a dichotomy when you have kids because they do crave that. Now, of course, they're getting a little bit older, so I'm like, okay, what's next? But yeah, no, I totally hear you that it's obviously it's a little bit more challenging, or it would be more challenging if you had kids.
Definitely. And as they get older, I think they're more into it, but still, like you're right, structure, they want their community. Like I always say, like being a parent is the number one career choice you can ever make in your life. You can study to be a 3-time PhD with like all kinds of wild business experience, but it won't compare to being a parent. It's just the ultimate career move. And because I feel like my parents are such incredible humans and did such a great job with my sister and I that I, I, I honestly like, I don't have any half way of doing parenthood. Like I'd have to be all in. And so the life that seems to choose me is the life of someone who's an artist and is that is really my muse. That's really my calling, my work, my family, you
Right.
know. I
Yeah.
like to say like instead of putting all my energy and effort into raising 1 or 2 children, I get to put all my energy and effort into influencing and supporting thousands of people.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's they're different. Like you said, it's a very different career choice, and it's no less meaningful in any way. So, with that topic, so was that a conscious choice for you to not have children?
Yeah, it became conscious, as
Hmm.
time went by. My muses were definitely in relationships with the women I was in relationships with, and also with music and mostly like songwriting.
Hmm.
So listening to the world, listening to culture, and writing songs that interpret the world and allow me to. It's as much for me as it is for others, but just to
Yeah.
understand the world through music.
Yeah. No, that's beautiful. So another thing that I wanted to touch base with that I found fascinating was that a few years ago, you decided to marry yourself. You had a ceremony and a party, and it was pretty official, right? I mean, it was like a wedding with two people, but it was for yourself. Tell us about that because that is so cool.
So I decided to marry the universe.
Okay, the universe. So I have it wrong then.
No, it started as marrying myself, but then the deeper I looked into it before I did it, I was like, you know what? It's more like I'm saying yes to everything.
Hmm.
And included in that is myself.
Right. Yeah.
And so I wanted to, as my parents are getting older, like I mentioned, my father's 80 now. I wanted to show them that like I'm okay. I'm okay with who I am. Like I don't need to get married to another human. I mean, I might, but it's not like I need to do that to sort of say that everything's okay in my life.
Yeah, to say that you're whole as you are.
Yeah. And I I love my life. I love everyone in my life. And I wanted to make it official in a way that people from all different parts of my life, all different families could come and be a part of it. So I'm part of an incredible collective called Untethered Movement.
Mm-hmm.
And we put on a summer camp for adults every summer in Big Bear, California, which is near Los
Mm-hmm.
Angeles.
I think I've seen that.
It's the perfect spot for what I wanted to do, which was get married to the universe. So my parents came, my sister came, a whole bunch of friends from different communities came. And not only did they get to be a part of my wedding and support me, they also got to experience summer camp.
Oh my gosh, how fun. That's
Oh,
awesome.
it was so fun. And everyone, and it's like all ages, from 18 to like 78 or however old my dad was. And
I want to come to this camp.
yeah, it's so fun. It's life-changing for everyone that does it because it's so authentic.
Mm,
There's there's just nowhere. The only place to hide is to be more of a kid. That's what you do. You just have more fun. You just like play harder. It's just so special to have this container. And so I got married in the redwoods in the pines, and it was incredibly beautiful ceremony. And it's definitely changed my life in ways that I had no idea it would. And one of the ways is that I now believe that everyone should go through getting married to the universe first before marrying others.
right. And why is that?
Because how are you going to be able to show up as your fully authentic, I've chosen myself self until you've really gone through it? Like you're going to show up and you're going to be in a relationship with someone else and you're going to be seeking validation from them. You're going to be needing them to be a certain way. It's like classic kind of stuff that drives marriages apart
Mm,
because people aren't comfortable enough with themselves first.
right.
And a big piece of my actual wedding was everyone talks about love. Like all I do, I probably write a song about love every single day, right? Love is like the main theme. Love is everything. Love is everywhere. You know, love this, love that. Love me do.
Yeah.
And no one talks about trust.
Mm,
Trust is the forgotten piece. It's not very sexy. It's like serious. It's contracts. It's like meaning. It's like, you know, and yet trust is really the basis of all relationship. So that's what I learned by doing this is I have to learn how to trust myself before I can love myself, really. So that's the message I want to bring to people is if you're having a challenge with this concept of self-love and everyone's on the bandwagon of love yourself more, just like support yourself more, just like do nicer things for yourself. Yeah, I mean, that's a great concept, but it's really difficult to do if you keep abandoning yourself, if you
right.
keep not showing up for yourself, if you decide you want to try something new, but you don't stick with it, those are all trust issues. So my message during my ceremony was trust yourself and you'll love yourself.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. It's so true. It's so touching. And I completely feel it specifically. You and I were having a little conversation earlier, and that comes up that right now, my biggest effort is we don't even notice the ways in which we abandon ourselves until you're like, whoa, all of this that I've been feeling has nothing to do with anything outside of me. Nothing, not with that person or this situation. It's all about how I've been closing my heart or how I've been just being really mean to myself inside, like, like what you said, abandoning ourselves. Oftentimes, our frustration in relationships or in situations have nothing to do with anybody else, but how frustrated you are with yourself, how disappointed you are with yourself. But sometimes you don't see it that way because you're right. It's not normalized to talk about this. It's not, we talk about love. We talk about love in the context of other people. We talk about even trust is more trust other people. And you're right. The concept of building your self-love has everything to do with trusting that you are going to show up for yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I love what you just said. Like, trust is something we have with other people.
Yeah.
Like, if you say trust yourself, people are like, what do you mean trust? Of course I trust myself. But then we're alcoholics, and then we're people who abuse other people, and then we're, you know, inauthentic. There's so many ways that trust is definitely starts with ourselves first.
Right. Oh my gosh, I love that. And where did you get that idea? Like, where did you get the idea of creating the ceremony for yourself?
I guess my inspiration was like to go through another new experience, like have the actual experience of, well, everyone gets married, right? Everyone has kids, right? So why don't I just get married? But instead of the partner being another human, the partner being, all universally the qualities.
Nice. Yeah. Oh, so
Because I want to have the experience. What I've learned about life, it's like it's one thing to have knowledge, and all we have is knowledge. Like everyone has tons of knowledge. And the thing that very few people have is actual experience.
yeah. Yeah.
So I'm like on this whole thing in my life of having actual experience. Like when I became a nomad, it wasn't easy. It's not easy to not know where you're going to be next week or tomorrow night and yet once you've done it enough, you suddenly realize, huh, no matter what I do, it all works out. No
Yeah.
matter what weird place or how uncertain I am or whatever's happening, it still always seems to work out. Like there's always a like a place or like a I don't know, you make a decision that leads to another decision that it comes back to trust. And so I just kept playing this dance with trust where I would basically like sabotage or like do things that would be like, oh, things can't possibly work out.
Mm.
They'd still work out. And so I have a couple friends where that's their motto, and we always say that to each other. It's like it all works out no matter what you do.
Wow. That's so, so beautiful, so inspirational. I love it. It's really amazing. To like see your journey from what you've shared, especially going into like your journey with Kundalini yoga and how much you worked on trusting your intuition and then how that has shaped all of this for you. I mean, directly, indirectly, but you've made trusting yourself a big part of your life. And it seems like you're having a great time. And like, you're really you're living a very an incredibly fulfilling life without a lot of things that most people cling to and think that they're such like necessities in order to have a good life, to feel safe or secure or whatever it may be. And releasing that and letting go of that has brought you, I see it, and this is something that struck me as so special when I met you. It's like you're just like a free spirit and you trust the universe and everything's going to be fine. And you just said it, like everything works out. So I love
Yeah,
it.
it might not be easy, but it works out.
Right, but
So,
it's also the alternative is not easy either.
right, exactly, totally. That's the thing. People talk about monogamy versus polygamy, or or polyamory or something, and it's like monogamy has its challenges.
Right.
So does polyamory. So does any system you choose to live in or paradigm that you choose to subscribe to or society you live in. Like, it all has challenges. It all has ups and downs. And so, like, I don't know. I guess I'm on a journey to keep shaking it up, basically, to keep
Right.
trying new things, to keep discovering. I found the therapy for my ADD at scale, which is my life, just constantly changing.
I love that. I love it. I think a lot of us would benefit from that. And I think that the message also is not, in this podcast where you're not advocating for one way over another. It has nothing to do with saying this way is better than this way.
No
It's
way.
simply experiencing enough things and not just believing that, okay, this is the only like path that you must take, but taking risks and evaluating for yourself and experiencing like what works for you and discovering like who are you? Who are you? Who are you at your essence? And what is it that you truly need at your essence? And which I always say like the shit sandwich, right? Like which shit sandwich do you actually want to eat? Because sometimes we're eating a shit sandwich that is not at all the one that we would choose because everything's going to have difficulties. But we made like a different flavor of shit sandwich. So, anyways, I so appreciate you sharing your insights and your journey and your life. And I guess my last question would be if you had to give people advice, which I have a feeling I know where you're gonna go with this, but if you had to give people advice to live a more authentic life, what would you say?
Believe nothing.
Okay.
Because belief, I realized, was everyone else's truth, everyone else's faith, everyone else's operating system, and not my own.
Mm,
So by giving up some key operating systems, like just like letting go of the financial system for a while, letting go of mass media. There was a
mm,
point in my life where I was just like, I'm done watching professional sports. That's 3 hours I can't get back.
mm,
And then I stopped watching television entirely. I was vegan for 4 years, and which I realized that was like a cleanse in my life. That was like huge shift in my life. Like the things that I've learned the most from are things that I've given up
mm.
or I've taken a break from. So
Right.
while it's very un-American for me to say, but while everyone in America is telling you to be more, do more, buy more,
Mm,
I'm telling you to buy less and be more yourself and go in like look inside yourself.
mm.
And it's not going to be easy, but it's going to be totally transformational in your life.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I make my life asking questions.
Mm.
So my question for everyone is, what is something you're giving up right now? What is the thing that's just ready to go in your life? You're done with, it's over. You're committing to letting go of it. So I'm asking you that question right now. What's something, it doesn't have to be huge. It can just be like
Yeah.
something you've just been like, I've been tired of that. I'm ready to get let go of it. What would that be for you?
Mm. That's such a great question. I'm going to ponder on that and journal on it today.
Okay.
For sure.
Well,
Yes.
what's in the running? Come on, like what are
Oh,
the
you're asking
categories?
me right now? Okay.
Yeah.
In the running for me right away came up something around social media for sure. The stories. There are stories that I circulating in my head lately a lot. And I know I have the capacity to tell myself, like, to be just the spectator and be like, stop, like, we are not going there. I think that one. I think that one needs to happen like ASAP. And it's just like putting like a burrito down when you're full. That's it. It's not there's nothing more to it. There's nothing more to it. I just have to do it. I just have to show up for myself and trust myself.
And how can I support you on the journey of letting go of stories or cutting down certain parts of social media?
Hmm. If I ever try to talk to you about certain stories, just be like gently and lovingly redirect me. and I can let you know which stories those are.
Oh, that's cool. Like maybe that's a good idea. Like you tell people, you give them a boundary. Like, hey, if I start going on about this or that, maybe that's just
Yeah,
call me
just
out. That's
give me a hug. Give me a hug and a kiss and tickle
that,
me or something. I don't know, just something that is completely like shocks my system in the moment and takes me out of my head. Um, yeah, the social media part is a tough one, because we are so connected to other people through social media that I will feel very isolated. That one is one that I haven't figured out if it's just a time boundary, setting a limit, or I have to be super specific of like, if I'm communicating with people, it's okay, but just the scrolling, because the scrolling is it's like a drug. It's a drug. It's the new drug. It's so bad. So
it's
that
definitely good. I agree. And sure, I gave up television and watching sports, but I'm still on social media. And I could definitely catch myself like being like, put it down, do get back to being productive and making music and making art.
I know.
And also like one of the reasons that I love our summer camp so much is that because we don't have social media, we don't have our phones,
Right.
we're, we're with people. Like you're
Wow.
and you talk to someone new. You talk to someone you never talked to, and then next thing you know, they're your best friends for life. It's just
Yeah. It's the best.
maybe
I can say that.
maybe walk outside of your house without your phone. Just don't have your phone with you. And then
Yeah.
it forces you into relating to the world around you.
Right. Yeah. And I have a lot of moments where I do that. And then it's the moments where I just catch myself like going right into it. I mean,
Mm.
I'm a dancer, you know that, right? I dance, 2 hours a night, every night. I have my dogs, I go outside, I play with them. I wanted to show you, I have my violin over here when you said that, because I'm, learning how to play the violin. And there's a lot of hands-on things that I do that take my mind, that where I'm present, I have to be present, I'm, mindful. But this thing, oh my God, this phone. Yeah, sometimes I get angry at the fact that we have these handheld computers. uh,
I know.
we grew up without phones. My first, smartphone, I don't know, I think I was like over 30 when I got my first smartphone. So I remember my life without it, and it was really good. Not to say that life is not good now. Of course it's good. It's just, yeah, we're all a little disconnected with how connected we are. So,
Indeed, indeed, indeed.
but anyways, well, thank you so much for spending time with us today and sharing yourself. I'm so excited to share this episode. It's been so insightful, and I love everything that you are. You are light in the world, and I hope we get to hang out soon. And for our listeners, thank you for being here with us, and we'll catch you next time.